Chapter 51:14. Qingqing is back. She was sent back by Hun Yuanzi and Zhuo Junyue. I heard from the Phoenix Guard that she was injured. Come with me to take a look. We'll report back to Master later, Qi Kong said in a low voice. Hearing this, the two were slightly surprised and immediately followed him out. Du Fan said, "How did Qingqing get injured?" "She went to the Pan family in the mortal world. No one should be able to hurt her there." In the mortal world, the Pan family that Master had promised to protect for 3 generations had met with some trouble. At that time, they were busy and could not leave, so they sent Qingqing there. They thought that with her strength, it would be more than enough to deal with the matters in the mortal world. They did not expect that she would be injured and come back. Naturally, no one in the mortal world can hurt her, unless it's a cultivator whose cultivation is higher than hers, Fan Lin said as he walked forward. He was a little surprised and said, "But why did she meet Hun Yuanzi and Zhuo Junyue?" Zhuo Junyue was the descendant of Master's master. Because of Master, the Zhuo family was now a first-class family. Zhuo Junyue's cultivation was not weak either. He was a powerful cultivator and usually did not interact with them. Could it be that he heard that Master had returned, so he came to take a look? "You'll know when you see them," Qi Kong said as he strode to the front yard. There, Hun Yuanzi was eating snacks and drinking tea with his legs crossed. Zhuo Junyue was standing there with Bai Qingqing on his back. No one put her down. "They're here, they're here." Hun Yuanzi drank a mouthful of tea and swallowed the snacks. He saw the 3 of them but did not see Fengjiu. He hurriedly asked, "Why are you here? Where's Fengjiu?" "I heard that she came back, so I came here specially." "Senior." The 3 of them cupped their hands and bowed to him. They smiled and said, "Master is in the backyard. We haven't reported to Master yet, so we came to take a look." As they spoke, they looked at Zhuo Junyue, who was carrying Bai Qingqing on his back, and asked, "What's going on? Why are you with Qingqing?" As he spoke, Fan Lin had already stepped forward and reached out to take Bai Qingqing's pulse. He was slightly stunned when he felt her pulse. He opened her palm and saw a red line extending from her palm to her arm. He then pulled her sleeve up a little. When he saw the red line on her fair arm, his brows furrowed slightly. She has been poisoned, and her internal injuries are not light. But on the way we, we. Hearing this, Du Fan, Qi Kong, and Fan Lin's eyes flickered. Sovereign? Which monarch would dare to attack them? Could it be suddenly they had some guesses? Chapter 51:15. "You're welcome," Zhuo Junyue said. He was still as quiet as ever. However, because of Fan Lin's request, he turned his back to Fan Lin and was ready to hand Bai Qingqing over to him. "He's been carrying her all the way. Why don't we let him carry her to the courtyard?" Hun Yuanzi said. He looked at Zhuo Junyue and then looked at the unconscious Bai Qingqing on his back. He gave a wretched smile. Zhuo Junyue glanced at him and said nothing. When Fan Lin heard this, his hand paused. He smiled and said, "Then I'll have to trouble you, Brother Zhuo." "I'll go and inform my master," Du Fan said with a smile. He looked at Hun Yuanzi and said, "Senior, do you want to come along? Yama Lord has just woken up. Many people have gathered in the main courtyard." "Sure. I'll go and meet him," Hun Yuanzi said and followed Du Fan. Fan Lin from Qi Kong brought Zhuo Junyue to the guest house. When they arrived at the guest house, Fan Lin helped Bai Qingqing lie flat on the bed as he checked the injuries on her body. However, because she was a woman, he did not check the injuries on her body. "How many knife wounds are there on her body? Those shouldn't be too serious. It's probably her internal injuries that are more serious," Zhuo Junyue said and paused for a moment. Then, he said, "But I saw her take a pill earlier." "Yes. Fortunately, she took the pill. Otherwise, she wouldn't have made it here if her injuries were too serious. Fan Lin said and looked at the red blood line on her palm. He was puzzled. How did she get poisoned? Not long after, Feng Jiu came. When she entered the room, she saw Zhou Junue, whom she had not seen for a long time. When she saw her, she smiled and greeted her. Long time no see. Long time no see. Zhou Junue said and looked at her. Then, he said, I heard that you're back. The old man asked me to come and see you. Feng Jiu smiled and walked forward. I just saw Hun Yuanzi. He's still the same. Then, she looked at him and smiled. You too. He wasn't good with words and didn't know what to say to her, so he didn't say anything and just stood to the side. At this moment, Fan Lin said, Master, come and take a look at this cup in Qingqing. Qi Kong, Du Fan, help me greet them, Feng Jiu said to the two people beside him. The two of them smiled and looked at Zhou Junue. We'll accompany you to meet the others. Everyone is in the main courtyard. All right, Zhou Junue replied. He nodded at Feng Jiu and followed them out. After they left, Qin Xian came in with water, and Fan Lin also left. After putting the water beside the bed, Qin Xian took off Bai Qingqing's clothes under Feng Jiu's signal. Looking at Bai Qingqing, who was lying on the bed with a lot of injuries on her body, she was worried and blamed herself. How could you be injured like this when you went out? It's our fault. We should have gone with her. Maybe she met with an accident on the way. You can't blame anyone for this. Fortunately, her life isn't in danger. Feng Jiu said and let Qin Xian bandage the wounds on Bai Qingqing's body. At the same time, he checked the cup in her body. Looking at the red blood line that extended from her palm to her arm towards her heart, Feng Jiu's fingers moved slightly. Her slender fingers gently rested on her pulse to find the cupworm that was lurking in her body. Chapter 51:16. Found it. Feng Jiu stared at the back of her ear and frowned slightly, but this goo worm is a little big, so it's not easy to draw it out. Then what should we do? Qin Xian couldn't help but ask. Feng Jiu stared at the goo worm wriggling in the flesh behind her ear. After thinking for a while, he said, Draw it to the bottom and dig it out. Hearing this, Qin Xian couldn't help but look at the unconscious Qing Qing and asked, Master, what do you need to prepare? I'll go and prepare. Just find a few strips of cloth. Feng Jiu said while holding Qing Qing's hand. A trace of the power of the green lotus was transferred into her body. However, this trace of power of the green lotus was like a fishing line, slowly extending from her arm. Do you see this floating goo worm? I'll draw it down. After it comes down, tie it tightly with a strip of cloth on the top of your arm and tie it with a belt at a short distance. Untie it one by one. Okay. Qin Xian responded and stared at the position of the goo worm. The goo worm was hidden in the flesh and didn't protrude. It only bulged slightly in the slightly moving parts. Moreover, it sometimes sank and hid in the flesh, so it was difficult to find. Qin Xian saw the goo worm moving little by little under the flesh. When it reached the arm, she began to tie it up with the strip of cloth. As the strip of cloth tightened, the goo worm bulged more and more and could be seen more clearly. Feng Jiu pressed it with one hand. When the goo worm reached her lower arm, she instantly cut her arm with the dagger in her hand. At the same time, she flicked the tip of the dagger and a golden goo worm flew out. Whoosh! A silver needle shot out, piercing the goo worm and nailing it to the wall. Glancing at the goo worm, Feng Jiu raised his hand and used the power of the green lotus to heal the wound on her arm. The wound healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Feng Jiu fed her another medicinal pill and then said to Qin Xian, Disperse the smell of blood in this room. She should wake up at night. Keep an eye on her. Yes. Qin Xian responded and cleaned up the room. She opened the window to disperse the smell of blood in the room. She saw her master take out the silver needle that was nailed to the wall and stared at the cup bug. Master, is the goo poison in her body considered cured? Yes, she'll be fine once the goblet is taken out. However, her body is still weak, so she needs to rest for a few days. Fengjiu put away the bug and threw it into the space. He told Qin Xian to take care of Qingqing and then left. Because Mose had woken up, everyone in the main courtyard gathered to chat. The arrival of Han Yuan made the atmosphere even livelier. However, when Fengjiu returned, everyone had already gone to the garden. After all, Mose had just woken up and no one wanted to disturb his rest. Therefore, when Fengjiu returned to the main courtyard, only Leng Hua, Ling Shuang, and Hui Lang were there. Mose, are you tired? Do you want to rest first? Fengjiu came in and asked. His gaze fell on him in the courtyard. No need. My body is gradually recovering. It's fine, he said and reached out his hand. Fengjiu reached out and held his hand. He led him to sit down in the courtyard. The others automatically retreated to the courtyard door to guard. When do you plan to go back to the Feng family's old residence? He asked. Chapter 51:17. Okay, then we'll set off in a few days. Now that I'm awake, you don't have to worry about things here. However, if people in the immortal realm know that you're here, I'm afraid they'll cause trouble. Xianyuan Mo said. Don't worry, it'll be fine. I've already arranged everything when I came down. However, when I go up this time, I'll have to settle some accounts with some people. Her voice was calm, but one could hear the killing intent in her words. You can also wait for me to go up before you settle accounts with those people, he said. I'm currently suppressing my ascension, but with the tempering of the heavenly lightning last time, it should be much easier this time. Do you need me to stay with you? Fengjiu held his hand and asked. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mo's lips curled up. He looked at her and said, Don't worry. This time, I won't make you worry. He could feel the powerful force hidden in his body. It was stronger than before. When the time comes, let's leave Qi Kong and the others behind. We can't all leave. We have to leave them here to guard. First, they can protect the Feng family's old residence. Second, they can guard the various realms and prevent others from taking advantage of the situation. Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded. Yes, that's what I plan to do. The two chatted in the courtyard and talked about their plans for the future. At night, everyone gathered together for dinner. Fengjiu looked at Zhuo Junyue, who was sitting next to Han Yuan, and asked, Junyue, you still don't have plans to get married? Do you have a girl you like? Zhuo Junyue was drinking wine. After hearing her words, he paused and said, No. You're a taciturn gourd. Your brain isn't bright at all. Han Yuan glanced at him and chuckled. He said to Fengjiu, Little Feng, there are many beautiful and capable girls around you. Why don't you matchmake him? Hearing this, the people present couldn't help but glance at each other. For a moment, their eyes fell on Qin Xian and Ling Shuang. Qingqing and Fei Fei hadn't fully recovered from their injuries, so they didn't come tonight. Who do you have your eyes on? Where are the people around me? Fengjiu glanced at Zhuo Junyue with a faint smile. When he saw that Zhuo Junyue was just drinking his wine, his smile deepened. Ha ha ha, who doesn't know that the girls around you are the best? I wonder who will be lucky enough to marry them. Han Yuan laughed. Fengjiu took a sip of wine and said, I don't randomly choose mandarin ducks. They have to be willing. If anyone has the ability to make them agree, not only will I not stop them, I will also give them a big gift and let them marry grandly. Sigh, it's a pity that this old man is too old. I'm no longer as handsome as I was back then. Han Yuan sighed and stroked his beard. Fengjiu almost spat out the wine in her mouth when she heard that he was no longer as handsome as he was back then. She coughed lightly and put down her wine cup. She smiled and said, It's a pity that I can't see you as handsome as you were back then. When she said this, everyone couldn't help but laugh. That night, everyone laughed and fooled around. It wasn't until late at night that they returned to their courtyards to rest. Chapter 51:18. This time, Fengjiu only brought Du Fan, Ling Hua, and Ling Shuang with her. The others stayed behind. For example, Qi Kong and the other leaders of the 8 Phoenix Guards had to stay behind to guard, so they couldn't go with her. On the other hand, Qinxin and Fan Lin were a couple that everyone had a tacit understanding of. Naturally, she would not allow them to ascend to the immortal world. As for Bai Qingqing and Yi Feifei, she felt that it was better for them to remain in the lower realm with their strength and cultivation. Moreover, she also had a selfish motive. She hoped that they could spend more time with Qi Kong and the others. If they liked each other, they could become a couple. She was going to take Feng Yi and Zhao Yang to the immortal world, but she didn't know if her grandfather and the others would agree, so she let them go with her. Her brother, Guan Shilin, naturally went back with them. As for the people who were left behind, they were a little depressed when they saw them leave. Especially by Qingqing and Yi Feifei. They also wanted to stay by their master's side, but their master made them stay. Even so, they unconditionally obeyed their master's decision and acted according to her orders. This time, when they went back, they first went to see Xianyuan Mo's father, and then went straight to the Feng family's old mansion. If it was a usual flying sword or flying ship, it would take at least half a month. But this time, because of Fengjiu, they only took a few days to return to the Feng family's old mansion. Because they didn't want to cause too much commotion and didn't want to alarm the people in the city, they waited until nightfall to quietly go to the Feng family's old mansion. "Ah Jiu, do you think we should just climb over the wall and go in? Or knock on the door?" Feng Yi asked with a pair of peach blossom eyes with a smile, looking at Fengjiu beside him. Fengjiu glanced at him and said, "Go back to your own home and climb over the wall? Go knock on the door." Okay, Feng Yi said. He was about to go up and knock on the door, but he suddenly stopped. He saw that on the wall of the Feng family's gate, there was a sudden sound of something jumping on the wall. In the night, Feng Yi looked over and saw a green chicken flapping its wings and stretching its neck. It stared at Fengjiu with a pair of eyes. The next moment it screamed. "Master is back! Master is back! Am I seeing things? Master is back!" That sharp voice was filled with excitement and surprise. It stood on the wall and shouted while flapping its wings. "Green?" Fengjiu was slightly stunned. She stared at the green-feathered chicken that had been raised to become very fat. Only then did she realize that not only was it fat, but it was also much bigger. "Master is calling. Master! Master! I almost forgot I have such a master." Green excitedly flapped its wings on the wall. Just when Fengjiu thought it was going to jump down, he saw it turn around and jump into the inner courtyard. He could faintly hear the sound of it running and the screams coming from its mouth. "Master's mother, Master's father, Master's grandfather, Green's master is back. She's back. Come and see." Hearing the voice coming from inside, Fengjiu's mouth twitched. This time, there was no need to report. The whole family probably knew she was back. "Who is it in the middle of the night?" The gatekeeper's voice came from inside. There was a hint of sleepiness in his voice. Perhaps he was woken up by Green, or perhaps he heard the commotion outside. Chapter 51:19. Eldest young miss. The gatekeeper was so excited that his voice stuttered. He was an old member of the Feng family. Even though he hadn't seen her for many years, he still recognized Fengjiu at a glance. "Eldest young miss, son-in-law, second master, you're all back. I'll immediately go report to the family head. I'll immediately report." Saying this, he didn't even wait for them to speak before excitedly running inside. Fengjiu faintly smiled and shook her head, saying, "It seems that I've disturbed grandfather's good sleep tonight." She knew that coming back at night would disturb their sleep. However, if she didn't come back at night, it would be too conspicuous during the day. "We haven't seen each other in so many years. Now that you're back, you definitely won't be able to sleep." Xianyuan Mo's hugged her waist and walked inside with her. Guan Shilin and the others also walked inside. It was also because Green Hair was running around crazily and shouting non-stop that almost everywhere its voice went, the lights were lit up. The originally quiet Feng family became lively because of their arrival. The commotion in the middle of the night, in addition to Green Hair's shouts, naturally alarmed some of the families near the Feng family. Feng Sanyuan heard Green Hair's shouts, put on a coat, and hurriedly left the room. Once he left the room, he asked, "Is Feng girl back? Is Feng girl back?" Family head, eldest young miss is in the front yard. A hidden guard quickly came out to report. Also, son-in-law and second master have returned with eldest young miss. Good, good, good. It's good that they're back. It's good that they're back, Feng Sanyuan said excitedly. He strode out of the courtyard while shouting behind him, "Su Shi, Feng girl and the others are back. I'll go to the front yard first." Su Shi finished putting on her clothes and came out. Her face was still a bit sleepy, but when she heard that Feng Zhou and the others had returned, she was happy and quickly went to the front yard. She ordered the servant girl beside her, "Go to the main yard and see if the family head and the others know. Inform them." "Yes." The maidservant hurriedly responded and quickly walked towards the main courtyard. Feng Xiao and his wife also got up after hearing Green Hair's words. Feng Xiao put on his clothes and said excitedly, "Did you hear that? They said Xiao Jiu is back. I haven't seen her in so many years. It's good that she's back, it's good that she's back." Shangguan Wanru's voice was slightly choked. She hurriedly put on her clothes and went to the front yard with him. The entire residence was brightly lit, and the sound of servants moving about could be heard. They were busy serving tea and water. The secret guards and bodyguards could not help but come to the front courtyard, wanting to see Feng Zhou. At this time, Feng Sanyuan walked over with large strides. Before he arrived, his voice had already reached the front yard. "Little Feng? Little Feng?" "Grandpa." When Feng Zhou saw him, she was slightly surprised, because with the increase in his strength, his appearance had already recovered to his peak. However, seeing him this time, he was the familiar white-bearded grandpa. "Grandpa, I missed you so much." She went up and hugged him. Only when she saw them did she feel the warmth of a family member. "Grandpa missed you too. You girl, how many years have you been gone? Grandpa often missed you and hoped that you would come back to see Grandpa." Feng Sanyuan sighed and patted her back, saying, "It's good that you're back, it's good that you're back." Chapter 51:20. Ha 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 ha. When Feng Sanyuan heard this, he stroked his beard and laughed, saying, "Now, your grandfather's state of mind can't be compared to back then. At this level, I can change my appearance as I wish." As he said this, he patted her shoulder and sighed in distress. "Ai, Feng girl, you don't know, your grandfather is too young. Last time, someone even mistook me for your father's son." When Feng Zhou heard this, he couldn't help but laugh. Even the others in the hall couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. That's right, Feng Xiao had a strong and sturdy appearance. Moreover, he had always maintained his appearance even when he was middle-aged. On the other hand, after the old man's strength advanced and his appearance became younger, people who didn't know would really mistake the two of them when they stood together. "Father, with your current appearance, people who don't know would think you're my grandfather," Feng Yi said with a grin. "You brat, you still know how to go home? If Feng girl didn't bring you back, who knows where you'd be going crazy." Feng Sanyuan snorted and scolded in a bad mood. When he heard this, Feng Yi rubbed his nose and retreated to his mother's side. "Mother, your son missed you." As he said this, he hugged her. When Feng Sanyuan saw this, he glared at him and stepped forward to pull him out of Su Shi's embrace. "How old are you already? You're still burrowing into your mother's embrace, aren't you ashamed?" Ha 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 ha. When Guan Shilin saw this scene, he couldn't help but laugh loudly. On his side, everyone's faces also revealed smiles as they looked at Feng Sanyuan and the others with interest. Su Shi also smiled and patted Feng Ye's hand. Then, she looked at Feng Zhou and Xianyuan Mose and warmly said, "Mose, has your body recovered? Why didn't you tell me you were coming back? You must be tired from the journey, right?" "My body has already recovered," Coming back so late, I didn't let you all sleep well. Xianyuan Mo said. It's good that you're back. Come, come, have a seat. Feng Sanyuan gestured and walked towards the main seat. He saw Feng Xiao and Shangguan Wanru walking over together. He smiled at Feng Jiu and said, Your parents are here. Xiao Jiu. Feng Xiao called out loudly, holding Shangguan Wanru's hand as the two of them walked in with large strides. Father, mother. Feng Jiu greeted him, but when she saw the clothes her father was wearing, she couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Then, she pursed her lips into a smile. Feng Xiao, you're already over 50 years old. Why are you still wearing your clothes inside out? Feng Sanyuan stroked his beard and stared at him with a smile. At this time, Feng Xiao and Shangguan Wanru finally reacted. They glanced at their clothes and realized that they had indeed worn their outerwear inside out. Shangguan Wanru said softly, It's all my fault. Once I heard that Xiaojie was back, I didn't help him look after his clothes. The two of them left in a hurry. Ha ha ha, it's fine. We'll just change back when we get back. I didn't notice. Feng Xiao laughed loudly and didn't mind. Instead, he looked at his daughter in front of him and said, Xiaojie, how did you come back? Didn't you ascend? How can you still come back? Sit down and talk. Sit down and talk. Feng Sanyuan shouted, indicating for them to sit down. Chapter 51-21. Guan Shilin lived next door and often saw them, unlike them who left for a few years, so he just stood aside and looked at them. Okay, we're all family. There's no need to be so formal. Feng Sanyuan waved his hand and said, Xiaojie, tell us about what happened to you in the past few years. And Mose, it's been a few years since his accident. Is his body fully recovered now? Feng Xiao asked. Mose's body has recovered, and his soul has become even stronger. You don't have to worry about him. As for the past few years in the immortal realm, Feng Jiu said slowly. He knew that they were concerned about what happened to him in the past few years, so he gave them a rough explanation to make them feel at ease. They chatted until the sky gradually brightened. So this time, I'm preparing to set up this transportation array at the Peach Blossom Cove. Also, I want to bring Feng Yi and Zhao Yang to the immortal realm. What do you think? Feng Jiu looked at them and said. Hearing this, Feng Xiao and Shangguan Wanru didn't say anything. Feng Sanyuan and Su Shi looked at each other and pondered for a while. Dad, Mom, Aju said that we can go to the immortal realm. We also want to go and broaden our horizons. Let us go. Feng Yi looked at the two of them and said with anticipation in his eyes. What do you think? Feng Sanyuan looked at Su Shi and asked. He naturally doted on Feng Yi, who was born at an old age, especially since this child didn't always stay by their side. If he wasn't cultivating in the mountains, he would travel around. Now that he said that he wanted to go to the immortal realm, to be honest, he was still a little worried. I'll listen to you. You can decide. Su Shi said with a gentle smile on her face. She trusted him wholeheartedly. Then go. As Feng Sanyuan spoke, he glanced at Feng Yi and Zhao Yang, then said to Feng Jiu, It's good to let them go up and broaden their horizons. However, you can't let them use your reputation to run amok outside. Feng Jiu smiled, glanced at Feng Yi's Zhao Yang and said, Grandpa, don't worry. I know. I'm going to send them to the sect for a few years. That's great. Feng Yi smiled and said, But do we still need to go to the sect? Actually, it's fine for us to travel and cultivate by ourselves. Listen to Feng Girl's arrangements. Otherwise, I won't let you go. Feng Sanyuan glared at him and said. Feng Yi moved his mouth, looked at his father, and then looked at Feng Jiu. He sighed and said faintly, I really don't have any dignity as a little uncle. How can a little uncle listen to his little niece? Feng Jiu laughed and patted his shoulder, saying, When you can beat me one day, it'll be my turn to listen to you. It would have been better if she didn't say this. Once she said this, Feng Yi's shoulders slumped and he said weakly, Then I have no hope. Ha 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 ha. In the hall, everyone laughed. Laughter came from the hall, and the guards outside heard it. They couldn't help but be curious about what was going on inside. I've asked someone to prepare breakfast. Eat something and go rest first, Shangguan Wanru said and looked at them. Okay. Chapter 51-22. Guan Shilin returned home first, while everyone else went to eat breakfast first. The servants, secret guards, and guards in the manor followed everyone out of the hall. When they saw Fengjiu, who they hadn't seen for a long time, they were all excited and wanted to go up and greet her. Although the Feng family didn't spread the news, the other families in the city also faintly heard the news. However, even if they were curious and wanted to visit, they didn't dare to suddenly disturb them. After breakfast, Fengjiu accompanied her grandfather for a walk in the manor, while Mo Zhe went to rest first. Feng Sanyuan saw her looking around while walking, so he asked, "Little Feng, you haven't been back for a long time, right? Do you feel unfamiliar?" Fengjiu smiled and said, "How could that be? I've lived here for so long. Even if I haven't been back for a few years, I'm not unfamiliar with this home." She smiled and held his hand. "I'm just looking for green hair. I haven't seen it since last night." You're talking about that green hair chicken. After you left it here, it's been raised by your mother. It eats good food every day. Did you notice that it's strong and fat?" Feng Sanyuan smiled and looked around. Usually, when you're not home, the house is very quiet. However, this green hair chicken would jump out and bark from time to time. Although it's a bit noisy, it's also livelier. As the two talked, they didn't notice that green hair chicken poked its head out from the flowers not far behind them and looked at Fengjiu. It didn't know if it was shy or something, but it actually shrank back and hid. With Fengjiu's strength and cultivation, she could sense green hair chicken following behind them. However, it didn't come out, so she didn't call it out. Instead, she accompanied her grandfather for a walk and smiled. "I originally wanted to take green hair and Little Black with me this time and go to the immortal realm to be companions with other contracted beasts. However, since I can't find it, it's fine. I heard from brother that Little Black is guarding the Peach Blossom Cove. Master, bring me along, bring me along. I want to go too, I want to go too." Hearing Fengjiu's words, Green Hair immediately rushed out from behind the flowers. "Not dodging anymore?" Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and looked at the sturdy and fat green fur in front of him. If me were to see it, she would probably think that it would be best to use it to make soup. "Master." Green Feather wiggled its butt and squeaked. Fengjiu couldn't help but laugh when he saw this. He squatted down and touched Green Feather's glossy green feathers. "Little Feng, from what you've said, Mose's body still has the mark of the ancient Black Lotus. With this Black Lotus on him, will something bad happen? Can he control this Black Lotus?" Feng Sanyuan remembered what she said and was a little worried about Xianyuan Mose. Hearing his words, Fengjiu stood up and said, "If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. Now that the Black Lotus is with him, it doesn't matter what happens. The only thing we can do is to face it." "Ai." Feng Sanyuan sighed. Looking at her, he patted her hand and said, "Outsiders only know that you guys have boundless glory, but they don't know that your journey is extremely difficult. It's really been hard on you." Fengjiu smiled and said, "Grandfather, you don't have to worry about us. We'll be fine. No matter what kind of difficulties we encounter in the future, we'll overcome them one by one." Chapter 51-23. Looking at how confident she was now, Feng Sanyuan smiled. "Good, good, good. With your words, grandfather is relieved." After the two of them took a walk in the garden, Guan Shilin brought Yi Jing and the child over. She gathered with them before returning to the courtyard to rest. Even though she had not returned for a few years, the courtyard she used to live in was still kept for her in this home. There were even people who cleaned it, just like before. Nothing had changed. When she returned to the courtyard, she went to take a bath first before returning to the room. As soon as she entered the room, Xianyuan Mose patted the bed beside him and lifted the quilt. "Come and sleep for a while." Fengjiu looked at him and revealed a gentle smile. After taking off her coat, she came to his side and lay down. A pair of big hands wrapped around her waist and pulled her into his embrace. "Sleep." His deep voice sounded in her ear with a seductive magnetism. She only felt her ear itch and slightly rubbed against his chest. Her hands also wrapped around his waist, feeling the feeling of him by her side. "Aze, it's so good to have you by my side." She closed her eyes and murmured softly. Her entire body and mind relaxed as she fell into a deep sleep in his arms. Xianyuan Mose listened to her words and his deep eyes turned into deep affection. He lowered his head slightly and looked at Fengjiu, who was completely relaxed and sleeping in his arms. His thin lips curled up slightly and his eyes were filled with gentleness. He gently kissed her forehead and whispered, "Me too. With you by my side in this life, it's not a waste of time." After resting for a day, they took the carriage to Peach Blossom Cove the next morning. They did not fly on their swords, nor did they fly in the air. When they reached the foot of the mountain, they slowly walked up. Because this was Fengjiu's private place, and they were not here, this place was usually not open to the public. In addition, there were guards here, so only the Feng family could come here. "I haven't been here for a long time. It's still so beautiful." As Feng Yi spoke, his pair of peach blossom eyes looked at this fairyland-like place and asked with a smile, "Agio, is there such a beautiful place on your fairyland-like island?" "And it's even better." Fengjiu smiled and said. As soon as her voice fell, she felt the ground tremble slightly, as if something was running over. Bang bang bang! A huge black figure came out of the peach blossom forest and ran with both hands and feet. Every time it ran, the ground shook. "It's that big idiot." Chicken Feather came out from behind and called out when he saw the big black bear. "Master! Master!" The big black bear quickly ran to Fengjiu and looked at her with an aggrieved expression. "Master, you've finally come back to see Little Black. Master, will you bring Little Black with you this time?" "Master, I want to stay by your side. I don't want to stay here." Looking at it, Fengjiu could not help but feel apologetic. She reached out to pat its head, but it was too big and her hand could not touch its head. Just as she was about to reach back, it quickly squatted down and moved its head closer. Seeing this, she could not help but chuckle. She patted its head and said, "It's been hard on you these years. This time, I'll take you to the celestial realm to be with everyone." Chapter 51-24. Xianyuan Mose glanced at the big black bear and said to Fengjiu, "Let's go. Let's see which place is suitable." Knowing that he was talking about setting up a formation, Fengjiu nodded and went up with him. He said, "We'll set up another formation around here. That way, people won't enter by mistake." Although there were people guarding this place, it was hard to guarantee that there wouldn't be some curious cultivators who wanted to explore this place. If they set up a formation, unless they told the people around them how to enter the formation, other people would walk around inside and then come out again. "Yes, this is a must." Xianyuan Mose responded and walked slowly. Du Fan and the others followed behind and went back to the familiar place. In the end, Fengjiu set up the transportation formation in the peach blossom garden because there was a large peach blossom garden here. With peach blossoms as a formation, it was very attractive. After choosing a place, Fengjiu set up a transportation formation in the peach blossom garden. This transportation formation was different from ordinary transportation formations. When the ancient pattern formed on the ground with a powerful aura, Du Fan and the others could feel the powerful energy in this transportation formation. Even Du Fan, who was proficient in formations, felt that this transportation formation was very mysterious when he saw Fengjiu personally set it up. The ancient pattern and the energy in the formation seemed to contain a mysterious and powerful force and mystery, making people unable to understand it even if they wanted to. Especially when he saw her cut her finger and drip her blood into the formation, he was even more surprised. He had never seen such a mysterious and ancient formation before. But thinking about it, it made sense. If anyone could comprehend the profundities within it, they probably wouldn't have been isolated from the world for millions of years. After setting up the formation and setting up another formation around it, time slowly passed. They walked around the Peach Blossom Cove and admired the peach blossoms. That night they stayed here. It wasn't until the next morning that they put Green Hair and Little Black into the space and brought them back to the Feng family. The days spent together always passed quickly. Even if Fengjiu wanted to spend more time with them, time passed unknowingly. She knew that the things here were almost done. She should go back to the immortal realm because she was needed there more than here. She had settled everything here, but there were still many things waiting for her to do in the immortal realm. Moreover, Moze was suppressing his strength now and was about to fly. She had to go back and prepare in advance to prevent someone from causing trouble for him. Therefore, this morning, she woke up early and wanted to see Feng Yi and Zhao Yang's morning exercises. When her parents woke up, she wanted to tell them about her departure. Unexpectedly, when she went to the martial arts field, she saw that her father had also woken up early. Just as she was about to call him, she saw him walk into the small path towards the back of the mountain. She was surprised and paused for a moment before following him. Actually, she was a little curious. What was her father doing at the back of the mountain so early in the morning? Feng Xiao woke up early. Most of the masters in the manor hadn't woken up yet. The servants didn't ask where he went. Moreover, this was the road to the back of the mountain. Du Fan and the others wouldn't come here and naturally wouldn't bump into each other. Therefore, when he went to the back of the mountain, he didn't think that there would be people following behind him. Chapter 51:25. Fengjiu followed behind him. The more she followed, the stranger she felt. Her father was walking towards the back of the mountain, towards the direction of the city. The terrain there was higher, and standing there, one could see the scenery of the city. However, this place was also rather remote. Even if people came to the back of the mountain, they would rarely come here. After all, if they wanted to see the scenery or something, they could go anywhere in the city. However, when she looked at the road in the back of the mountain, she could faintly see that someone had walked through it. Some of the weeds on the ground had been trampled, revealing a winding path. After walking for a while, she saw her father stop at a place that looked like a grave. Because he was blocking her view, she didn't see the name carved on the tombstone. She was just surprised. Why was there a grave in the back of the Feng family's mountain? Moreover, looking at the soil on the grave, it didn't look like a new grave. Who was buried here? Why didn't she know? Why did her father come here alone? She didn't hear her grandfather mention that there was a grave here. She felt more and more strange in her heart. She seemed to hear her father whispering something in front of her, so she tilted her head and listened carefully. Feng Xiao stood in front of the tombstone and looked at the weeds growing around the grave, as well as the fallen leaves on the tombstone. He whispered, "Guer, father has come to see you." As he spoke, he reached out and brushed away the fallen leaves on the tombstone. Then, he squatted down and took out 3 incense sticks from his space. He inserted them into the sticks and poured wine into the 3 wine cups. When Fengjiu, who was hiding behind and eavesdropping, heard this, her heart trembled. Her eyes narrowed and she looked at the grave with a shocked expression. At this moment, because her father was squatting down to pour wine, she just happened to see the name carved on the tombstone. The grave of his beloved daughter, Feng Qingge. Her heart trembled. For a moment she stood there in a daze. Her eyes were filled with shock, astonishment, disbelief, and complicated emotions her father knew. So her father had known all along. It's been some time since Xiaoju returned. Now that she's an expert who's ascended to the immortal realm, I don't think she'll be staying at home for long. This time, she's come back and told us a lot about her life outside. Feng Xiao said in a low voice. After pouring the wine, He sat down in front of the stone tablet. He stroked the name on the stone tablet with one hand and said, "It hasn't been easy for her all these years. All the things that she has experienced, no matter which one it is, are major events that shake the world, and those things are probably something that only she can do. Gur, although you're no longer here, seeing Xiaojiu is like seeing you. I've already lost a daughter, so I just want her to be well. Everyone in the family is doing well. You don't have to worry about your little uncle, Fengyi." Xiaojiu said that she wanted to take him to the immortal realm to cultivate and broaden his horizons. Your mother, Fengjiu, stood there without moving. She listened to her father talk about her in front of the tombstone. He talked about family matters as if he was just chatting about daily life. However, when she heard it, her heart was filled with endless bitterness. Since she was reborn into Feng Qingge's body, since she became a member of the Feng family, how many years has it been? She couldn't remember. Chapter 51:26. However, she had never said it because she was worried that they would not be able to take it. She did not know how to open her mouth. Perhaps she was more worried that they would treat her as a stranger after finding out the truth. And at this moment, when she saw this scene in the back of the mountain, she knew that she owed them an explanation. She took a deep breath and suppressed the rising and falling emotions in her heart. She looked at Feng Xiao, who was still talking, and called out, "Father." Feng Xiao could not help but be startled by the sudden call of "Father." He quickly turned around and saw the red figure walk out from behind the tree. His pupils constricted. "Xiaojiu? Why are you here?" He stood up and instinctively used his body to block the name on the stone tablet. Perhaps, in his heart, he didn't want to uncover the truth. Fengjiu walked forward step by step. Her gaze fell on the stone tablet as she asked softly, "When did father find out?" "Xiaojiu." Feng Xiao looked at her, not knowing what to say. Fengjiu walked forward and came before the grave. She looked at the name on the stone tablet and said, "Father, don't you want to know what happened?" Her gaze moved away from the stone tablet and fell on Feng Xiao's face. She said, "In the end, I owe father an explanation." Feng Xiao looked at her and then looked at the stone tablet before finally saying, "Many years ago, I knew that you were not Gur. You were Xiaojiu. Back then, that person told me that you possessed Gu Er's body." He paused, looked at the stone tablet, and said, "However, after going through so many things, I know that you truly treat us as family, and you truly protect us. You also treat yourself as a member of the Feng family, and you have never done anything to let down the Feng family or us. So, I believe that no matter what reason it was that made you my daughter, I also believe that you did not forcefully take over Gu Er's body." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. "Actually, for so many years, I wanted to tell you about this, but I didn't dare to." She looked at Feng Xiao and said, "Back then, Qingge was harmed by serene. Her face was disfigured, and she was even fed a deadly poison to erase her cultivation. She was sold to a brothel, wanting to torture her to death. Qingge resisted with all her might, but in the end, she still died. When I woke up, my soul had already fused with this body. I killed the person who harmed Song. When I sat in front of the mirror and looked at my ruined face, there was a remnant soul crying in my mind." Seeing his tightly clenched fists in his sleeves and his heaving chest, she sighed in her heart and said, "That remnant soul was Qingge. She told me that she was harmed by Su Royun and wanted me to avenge her. She also said that she was worried about you and hoped that I would take good care of you on her behalf. I agreed, so her remnant soul fused with my memories. Thus, my memories contained her memories. From that moment on, I became her." Feng Xiao let out a deep breath. Hearing her speak in detail, he only felt his heart clench in pain. His daughter! She had died so helplessly. As a father, he had failed in his duty. If he had protected her, perhaps that would not have happened. Chapter 51:27. Feng Xiao shook his head and said, "Don't tell them. That's enough. I don't want them to feel the pain and self-blame I felt when I first found out." He looked at Fengjiu and patted her shoulder, saying, Xiaojiu, you're very good. Even though Gu is no longer here, you're still here. Your existence also proves Gu-er's existence. Even though you're two souls, you're still one person. He sighed softly and looked at the name on the stone tablet, saying, That's good. I think Gu will be like me. She won't want her grandfather and mother to be sad for her. Okay, I'll listen to father, Fengjiu softly replied. The father and daughter quietly stayed there for a while before leaving. She originally wanted to tell them about leaving, but because of this matter, she didn't say anything and returned to the courtyard. What's wrong? Xianyuan Mose asked when he saw her return. Her expression didn't seem right. He went forward and held her hand. He touched her forehead and asked, Are you not feeling well? Fengjiu leaned into his embrace and hugged his waist. She whispered in his arms, So my father already knew that I wasn't Chinga, but Fengjiu. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose was slightly surprised and asked, What did he say? He didn't say anything. He also didn't tell me about this. I saw him go to the back of the mountain alone, so I followed him. I found a grave in the back of the mountain. It was the grave he set up for Chinga. After asking, I found out that he already knew about this many years ago. She sighed softly and said, So I told him how I became his daughter. I originally wanted to tell grandfather and mother, but father said not to tell them. He didn't want them to be sad. Okay, that's enough, Xianyuan Mo said. He gently stroked her hair and said, You've done enough for Chinga. You've done right by her, her family, and the Feng clan. Perhaps it's the will of the heavens to let you become a member of the Feng clan. Fengjiu didn't say anything. She just quietly hugged him and leaned into his embrace. She felt the warmth from his body and the sound of his heartbeat. After dinner, Fengjiu told them about her preparations to leave. Although Feng Sanyuan and the others were reluctant to part with her, they also knew that she was now a great emperor, so she couldn't stay here for long. Thus, they only reminded her to be careful in everything she did, and to come back more often when she had time. The next morning, Fengjiu, Xianyuan Mose, and the others sat in a carriage and went to the Peach Blossom Cove. When they arrived at the transmission array in the Peach Blossom Forest, Fengjiu let Fengyi, Du Fan, and the others go to the array to wait for her. Then she went to the side with Mose to talk. I'll wait for you up there. The 3 children have been talking about you. After you ascend, we'll find some time to go and see them. Fengjiu held his hand and didn't want to let go. Xianyuan Mose looked at her. His deep black eyes were filled with tenderness and love. He reached out and pulled her into his embrace. He kissed her forehead and said in a low voice, Okay, I'll go up to find you soon. He let go of her and looked at her, saying, Don't worry about me. Go. Okay. Fengjiu replied and looked at him deeply. Then she walked into the array and looked at him, saying, Zhe, I'll see you in the immortal realm. Chapter 51-28. Xianyuan Mose nodded and looked at Fengjiu without saying anything else. At this moment it was useless to say anything. Everything could wait until he ascended. Fengjiu retracted her gaze and activated the matrix. A beam of light rose from the matrix under her feet. In an instant they were wrapped in it. They turned into a beam of light that shot up into the sky and disappeared. Xianyuan Mose looked up and saw that the ray of light was inconspicuous in the sunlight. If one did not pay attention, it would be difficult to notice it. Seeing them leave, he turned around and left as well. Next, he had to prepare for his ascension. Upper Immortal Realm. During this period, a piece of news quietly spread in the Upper Immortal Realm. It was said that the Empress Phoenix Master had gone mad during her closed-door cultivation and had not stepped out of the Immortal Island for many years. Compared to the shocking things she had done when she first ascended, it was obvious that her closed-door cultivation in the past few years had caused a lot of speculation. Some people were even eager to make trouble. Among these people, the 3 great emperors who had a death feud with Fengjiu were the main ones. After observing and asking for information for a long time, the three of them arrived outside Fengzhou's immortal island. They looked at the barrier in front of them and the clouds that covered the scenery inside the barrier. The three of them looked at each other. Fengzhou has not come out for many years. Something must have happened. Since we can't find out why, let's go in and check it out today. If we can take the opportunity to kill her, it can be considered as resolving the knot in our hearts for many years. One of the great emperors said as he stared at the barrier in front of him. At this moment, he was still a little nervous. After all, the scene back then had shocked them so much that when they mentioned Fengzhou, they couldn't help but feel some fear in their hearts. Otherwise, they wouldn't have used recuperation as an excuse to hide from her for so many years. "I'll break this barrier," another great emperor said. He gestured for the two of them to step back. Then, he gathered a strong spiritual aura in his palm and attacked the barrier. At the same time, he shouted, "Break!" Bang! However, the airflow hit the barrier and made a loud noise. Not only did the barrier not break, but it also reflected the aura back. "Be careful!" one of them whispered and dodged at the same time. When the great emperor who broke the barrier saw the airflow being reflected back, his eyes narrowed and he quickly dodged. "I didn't expect the barrier set up by Fengzhou to be so powerful," another great emperor said as he looked at the barrier in front of him with a complicated expression. They knew that she was a genius that was only once in a million years. If they were not worried that she would dominate this place and make them submit to her after she ascended, they would not have taken advantage of her ascension to take advantage of her ascension and make them submit to her. They would not take advantage of her ascension would. If she wasn't so powerful, she wouldn't have been able to kill the Northern Flame Emperor all those years ago. To the immortal, and still she. And immortal. Being her. Hearing this, the other two great emperors looked at him and asked, "Great Emperor of Dongyao, what do you mean?" The great emperor of Dongyao glanced at the two of them and said, "A few years ago, I used the last fragment of the divine incense to send an order to a future sovereign in the immortal world to unify the immortal world and destroy Fengzhou's family and relatives in the immortal world. I believe that after a few years, he should have done something." Chapter 51:29. I didn't expect the great emperor of Dongyao to have the invigorating incense. The two of them spoke in surprise. The invigorating incense was a rare item. They didn't expect him to have it. After thinking for a while, the two of them asked again, "Is there any movement now?" The remaining incense can only be sent to the lower immortal realm. As for how things are going down there, I don't know. I don't know yet, but the chances of success should be relatively high. He didn't tell them that he had helped the monarch of the lower immortal realm find the seed of the Black Lotus. The Black Lotus brand had become one. Naturally, his strength had increased greatly. Coupled with the origin umbrella he had left for his descendants, no matter how powerful Fengzhou's people were, they wouldn't be able to resist him. If that's the case, then it's really a joyous occasion. The descendants of the great emperor of Dongyao are so capable. Let us congratulate you first. The two of them laughed and looked at each other. Then, they brought the topic back to the barrier in front of them. This barrier is so powerful. I'm afraid it's difficult to break it with one person's strength. Why don't the three of us work together? How about we break it in one fell swoop? All right. While they were preparing to break the barrier, the contracted beasts inside the barrier heard the commotion and knew there was an enemy attack. The fire phoenix spread its wings and shouted to Lao Bai and the others, "Enemy attack! Master isn't here. We have to guard the immortal island." Okay. The beasts below responded and flew toward the mountain gate of the immortal island. At the same time, Song Mi-er, who was cooking, heard the loud noise outside. She immediately picked up the kitchen knife and ran out. Is it an enemy attack? How many people are there? Tai Song was forging in the back mountain. He was preparing to refine weapons. When he heard the noise, he stopped and immediately picked up a sword beside him and was about to go out. What happened? Why is there a loud noise? I think I heard Er's voice. Yunyang hurriedly came out of the house and asked. Tai Song's expression was serious. It should be an enemy attack. And those who dare to come here are probably strong enemies. Master isn't here. I have to go out and take a look. He strode out and then flew up on his sword. I'll go too. Yunyang quickly followed. Bang! Rumble! An even louder sound than before rang out. At the same time, there was a rumbling sound, and a powerful airflow surged out. In front of the gate of the Immortal Island, the three great emperors stood at the edge of the boundary. Looking at the opening they had opened, their eyes sparkled. Even though he didn't show it on his face, he was shocked in his heart. Unexpectedly, even with the combined strength of the three of them, they only managed to break a hole in the barrier set up by Fengjiu. However, it was also because of this opening that the fog that blocked their vision also dissipated, allowing them to see the scene inside the Immortal Island. Even though they also had their own immortal islands, they couldn't help but feel their hearts tremble. They didn't expect that Fengjiu's fairy island would look like a fairyland at first glance. Clouds and mist swirled around it, and rainbows stretched across it. Hundreds of flowers bloomed, and red-crowned cranes danced in the clouds in the sky. With just a glance they were shocked. However, what they didn't know was that when they broke a hole in the barrier, in the forest of the Immortal Island, where Fengjiu had set up the formation, a light flashed and a formation appeared on the ground. Fengjiu and the others also appeared in the formation. Chapter 51:30. As soon as she arrived here, she felt that someone had opened a hole in the boundary array, and the sound was still echoing in the sky. Did someone want to attack her house while she was away? The corners of her lips curled up slightly, and her beautiful face showed a wicked and charming sneer. Her indifferent voice carried a light smile as she said, "It seems that we came back at the right time. Did someone attack us while you were away?" Feng Yi asked excitedly. He rubbed his fists and looked like he was ready for a fight. Fengjiu glanced at him and said with a faint smile, "Are you itching for a fight?" I just want to try my skills." Feng Yi couldn't help but smile when she looked at him. He was her little uncle, but when he saw her, he was like a mouse seeing a cat. Coward. Then let's stay here and practice. Fengjiu looked at him and Zhao Yang and said, "You two stay in this forest for a while. When I'm done with my business, I'll arrange a place for you to go." Okay. Zhao Yang nodded. You don't want us to help? Feng Ye's face was full of resentment. Fengjiu smiled, looked at him and said, "Do you think you can win? If you go out, you'll only be beaten. You'd better stay here first." As she said this, she looked at Du Fan and the others and said, "Come with me and have a look." Yes. Everyone responded and left with her, leaving only Feng Yi and Zhao Yang in the forest. At the gate of the fairy island, Fire Phoenix was the leader. When it saw the three people, it said in an ancient voice with a murderous intent, "My master didn't look for you, but you delivered yourselves to his door." Just when they broke a hole in the boundary array, it also received a message from its master through divine sense. Knowing that its master had just returned, it was relieved. Fengjiu and the rest did not directly fly over from the sky. Instead, Du Fan and the rest followed behind them while she took the lead. When she saw that the three of them were still standing outside the enchantment of the island, her eyes flashed and she sent a message to the Fire Phoenix. "Fire Phoenix, lure the three of them into the Immortal Island." Hearing the voice in her mind, the Fire Phoenix rolled her eyes and came up with an idea. At this time, she saw Lao Bai and the other contracted beasts guarding the mountain gate. Not far away, Song Mi and the others were flying over on their swords. She turned to Song Mi and the others and shouted, "You all go back first. Just leave it to us." "How can that be? There's an enemy attacking us, so I have to put in some effort," Song Mi shouted. When she saw that there were only 3 people at the opening of the barrier, she couldn't help but be surprised. Only 3 people? Tai Song's expression was not as relaxed. He looked at the three and said to Songmi, these three are all great emperors. Each of them can shake the world. Great emperors? I really couldn't tell. Songmi blinked and stared at the three people. No matter how I look at them, they don't look as strong as Master. You're right. The Fire Phoenix glanced at her and said, since you don't want to leave, then retreat a little further to avoid being affected. As soon as it finished speaking, it stared at the three people outside the barrier. In the next moment it pounced towards them. The three of them were cautious. Therefore, even though they had opened the opening in the barrier, they did not immediately go in. Instead, they pondered and sized up the situation. Chapter 51:31. They had broken a hole in the enchantment of the celestial island and caused such a huge commotion, but Fengjiu did not appear. Only these contracted beasts and a few weaker cultivators were here. It seemed like their guess was right. Something must have happened to Fengjiu, or perhaps he was not on the celestial island. Otherwise, he would not have been able to restrain himself and not appear after they had caused such a huge commotion. Just as they were deep in thought, they saw the Fire Phoenix charging towards them. They immediately spread out and attacked the Fire Phoenix together. This was Fengjiu's contracted beast. They had to kill it first to dampen Fengjiu's spirit. Whoosh! The Fire Phoenix screeched and spat out a ball of flames towards them. However, the three great emperors' attacks were fast and fierce. Even though it was an ancient divine beast, it was not strong enough to face the three of them alone. Swoosh! A gust of wind from his palm struck the phoenix's wings. The phoenix let out a cry and its body was sent flying back to the immortal island as if it was no match for Yi Chen. Ha 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 ha! Fengjiu's contracted beast is only SOSO. One of the great emperors raised his head and laughed. Seeing that the Fire Phoenix was injured and unable to defeat them, he was delighted. Seeing that the Fire Phoenix was escaping into the celestial island, he immediately chased after it. Wait for me to kill this Fire Phoenix first! He raised his voice and shouted. His figure swept into the celestial island like the wind and chased after the Fire Phoenix. The Fire Phoenix's original intention was to lure the three of them into the celestial island. Now that only one of the three had entered, it immediately shouted at Lao Bai and Tun Yun below, "Run!" Lao Bai was a straightforward person. Seeing that the Fire Phoenix was injured, he leaped up and said, "Let me help you." Tun Yun stared at the Fire Phoenix's injured wing. With the flames around, it could not see how injured it was. However, it knew that the Fire Phoenix's fighting strength was not limited to this. It did not understand, but when it saw the Fire Phoenix escaping and shouting at them to run, it immediately shouted at the other contracted beasts beside it, "Run!" Seeing this scene, the two great emperors outside looked at each other and said, "Let's go in and take a look." Thus, the two of them entered the celestial island and chased after their contracted beasts. However, just as they came in and chased after their contract beasts, Fengjiu, who was in the dark, gathered spiritual power in her hands and formed a complicated seal in her hands. Then, she let out a clear shout. "Seal!" The moment Fengjiu spoke, the three great emperors who were chasing after the contracted beasts froze. They couldn't believe what they had just heard. They turned around abruptly. They saw that the small opening they'd opened up was closing at a speed visible to the naked eye. On the other hand, Fengjiu, who'd caused them to think that something had happened, was standing not too far away from them, and she was closing up the barrier of the island once more while dressed in red clothes. She wanted to catch them like a turtle in a jar. "Oh no! We've been tricked! Damn it! She wants to trap us here!" The three great emperors cried out in alarm. Their expressions changed, and they almost instantly turned into rays of light and ran towards the enchantment that was gradually closing. They had a premonition that if they didn't escape now, they would probably die here today. Since you're here, don't leave. Chapter 51:32. The moment the boundary closed, the three figures slammed into the boundary at the same time. However, they couldn't get out and were bounced back. Due to their extreme speed, they were bounced dozens of meters away. Damn it! Seeing the sealed boundary, one of the great emperors cursed gloomily. Seeing that they couldn't leave, he stretched out his hand and a long sword appeared in his hand. He looked at Fengjiu and prepared for battle. The other two great emperors also looked at each other and said, "Since we can't leave, we can only fight. This battle has dragged on for long enough. Today, the three of us will join forces and kill Fengjiu. Otherwise, either she or we will die." The three of them knew that either Fengjiu or they would die today. Therefore, they could only give it their all in this battle. Not for anything else but to survive. Fengjiu smirked and gestured to Songmi and her contracted beasts. "All of you, back off a little." Seeing this, Tai Song and Yunyang retreated far away. Songmi also retreated. The contracted beasts looked at each other and retreated as well. At this moment, Du Fan and the others had also arrived nearby. Songmi and the others couldn't help but look at them, sizing them up and feeling surprised. Du Fan glanced at the three of them. His master had mentioned them before. Knowing that they were on the same side, he nodded at them. "Today is really a good day," Fengjiu said unhurriedly. As she spoke, the Qingfeng sword appeared in her hand. Looking at the three of them, her voice was cold and filled with killing intent. "At least it saves me the trouble of finding all of you one by one. Fengjiu, aren't you too arrogant? The three of us are all great emperors. Do you really think you can kill the three of us by yourself?" The great emperor of Dong Yao bellowed as he stared at her. His eyes were filled with malice. Dong Yao the great emperor? Fengjiu glanced at him and sneered. "I have something here that I want to show you. I believe you will find it familiar when you see it." Then, she called out, "Ling Hua." Yes. Ling Hua walked out and raised his hand. An item flew out from his hand and spun. The Chaos Umbrella. How can this be? This is impossible. Dong Yao the great emperor's eyes narrowed as if he had seen something shocking. He stared in disbelief at the spinning umbrella in the man's hand. This umbrella was a treasure that he left behind for his descendants before he ascended. How did it end up in Fengjiu's hands? Whoosh! However, just as he was in shock and disbelief, a biting cold sword qi suddenly struck out. The chilling sword qi that came from the Qingfeng sword in Fengjiu's hand was as fast as lightning and as fierce as the cold wind. With a swoosh, it streaked across the air and attacked Dong Yao Great Emperor. "Be careful!" A great emperor not far from Dong Yao the Great Emperor shouted. As Fengjiu was too powerful, the three of them had to join forces to gain the upper hand. Therefore, before they killed Fengjiu, the three of them were in the same boat. If one of them died first, it would be extremely disadvantageous to the remaining two. Therefore, when he saw Fengjiu's sword rushing towards Dong Yao the Great Emperor while he was distracted by the umbrella, he quickly moved forward. Chapter 51:33. Due to the piercing pain and the aura of death brought about by the sharp sword, the great emperor of Dong Yao came back to his senses. He felt his body being pulled away. Due to this, Fengjiu's sword did not hit a fatal spot even though it had hit him. "Do you want to die?" The great emperor who had saved him shouted in a gloomy voice. "She deliberately distracted you so that she could attack you. If I hadn't pulled you away, you would have died under her sword." Blood seeped out from the wound on his shoulder, which was only a fist's distance away from Li Xian's chest. At this moment, the wound was seeping with a chilling sword aura like an icy sharp blade drilling into the wound. It was bone-piercing and unbearable. The warm blood soaked a large part of the front of his shirt. The smell of blood filled his nose, but it calmed him down instead. He quickly sealed the wound to stop the bleeding. When he looked up, his cold eyes were glaring at Ling Hua, who was holding the treasured umbrella. His eyes were overflowing with killing intent. "What a pity!" Fengjiu sighed softly. There was a hint of pity in his voice. It was a pity that the sword missed and could not take his life. "Fengjiu, today I'll show you my strength." The great emperor of Dong Yao gritted his teeth and said in a gloomy voice. The treasured umbrella was in Fengjiu's hands. Needless to say, the descendants of the family in the lower immortal realm must have been wiped out. His monstrous anger turned into a strong battle intent at this moment. He held the long sword in his hand and leaped into the air. The sword that contained a powerful sword aura viciously slashed down at Fengjiu from the sky. Die! The powerful sword aura formed a terrifying airflow and pressure in the air. Even Songmi, and the others who were relatively far away could feel the oppressive and terrifying aura. The wind in the air seemed to have condensed on the sword. With a whoosh, it slashed down at Fengjiu with a thunderous and destructive aura. At the same time, the other two great emperors also moved. They rose into the air and stood in 3 different directions, forming a triangle that trapped Fengjiu in the middle. Their palms contained powerful wind and air currents, and at that moment they also attacked Fengjiu, who was in the middle. They thought that even if she could dodge one of their attacks, one of the other two would definitely be able to kill her. At the very least, even if he couldn't kill her, he could at least severely injure her. However, just as the 3 of them were attacking Fengjiu from 3 different directions, Fengjiu moved with the Qingfeng sword in his hand. When the attacks from the 3 sides landed, the red figure flashed towards one of them like a bolt of lightning. The red figure flashed through the sword shadows and palm winds. The speed was so fast that they could only see the red figure, as well as the killing intent and the aura of death that the red figure brought. The Qingfeng sword drinks blood. The cold voice with a bloodthirsty aura sounded like a voice from hell. At the same time, the great emperor of Dong Yao's sword slashed down at the place where Fengjiu was originally standing. At the same time, a huge palm print also fell at that moment, creating loud bangs. Swoosh! Bang bang bang! Swoosh! Chapter 51-34. The sword Qi landed on the ground and sliced it open like tofu. With a loud bang, a crack as wide as a person appeared on the ground. Dust flew up and filled the air. At the same time, an unwilling and horrified scream was heard. Ah! Amidst the dust, a great emperor who was standing in the air widened his eyes in shock and horror. His body stiffened as blood seeped out from his forehead. Not far behind him, Fengjiu was holding the green-tipped sword with the blade pointed downwards. She was in a slashing posture. At that moment, as she raised the sword in her hand, the body of the great emperor, who had been standing stiffly in mid-air, suddenly exploded. Bang! Surging sword Qi burst out from his body and sliced him into pieces. At that moment, as the sword Qi burst out, flesh and blood splattered all over the ground. Dead, dead. The great emperor of Dong Yao and the other great emperor widened their eyes in disbelief. A great emperor was killed with a single slash? Did they see wrongly? The scene in front of them was bloody and tragic. Just like that, it exploded in front of them. Some of the flesh and blood splattered on their faces along with the airflow. They felt as if the flesh and blood that splattered on their faces were burned by flames. The scorching heat made them panic. Why was it so easy for Fengjiu to kill a great emperor like she was cutting a piece of tofu? A great emperor who had an unparalleled lifespan and was powerful enough to shock countless sovereigns was killed with a single slash? They had heard many rumors about Fengjiu's terror. They had also heard many rumors about her, especially about the death of the great emperor of Beiyan. At that time, they even wondered if the great emperor of Beiyan's combat strength had weakened. Otherwise, how could he not be able to defeat Fengjiu who had just ascended? However, at this moment, when they faced Fengjiu personally, they realized how terrifying Fengjiu was. At this moment, they didn't know and didn't see that when Fengjiu killed the great emperor with a single slash, almost all the experts felt it. Due to the great emperor's death, the land he controlled shook violently. The sovereigns and great emperors from other regions were shocked by the disappearance of the divine souls scattered across the land. Why did another great emperor die all of a sudden? On Fengjiu's deity island, The Qingfeng sword in Fengjiu's hand was dripping with blood. At the tip of the sword, a drop of blood was condensed and didn't fall to the ground for a long time. She stood in the wind in her red clothes and exuded a powerful aura. She stared coldly at the two great emperors and spoke unhurriedly. "Who's next?" The two great emperors calmed themselves down and pursed their lips. They stared at her with a serious expression. The two of them suppressed their fluctuating emotions and didn't dare to be careless. At this moment, they used 100% of their combat strength to deal with Fengjiu. "The next one to die will definitely be you, Fengjiu." A sinister voice filled with murderous intent sounded. Two figures charged towards Fengjiu with monstrous aura and terrifying killing intent. Chapter 51:35. As he muttered to himself, the sky in the distance suddenly darkened, as if something was shaking. He sat on the mountain peak and looked at the shaking sky in the distance. His heart skipped a beat. It seemed that more than one great emperor had died today. He wondered how many would die by the end of this battle. On the Shao family's island, Roaring Sky Grand Emperor felt the turbulence and the fall of a Grand Emperor. He couldn't help but come out of seclusion in advance. He stood at the top of a mountain and looked into the distance. They were all great emperors from the upper immortal world. Even though the battle between the great emperors was taking place in different regions, they could still sense it with their powerful divine souls. The death of a great emperor was no small matter. It was also extremely rare. After all, there were countless sovereigns in the upper immortal realm, but there were only a dozen or so great emperors. These great emperors had a long lifespan and powerful strength since the day they ascended. As long as they were not killed, they would live as long as the heavens and earth and enjoy the worship of thousands of generations. Moreover, even though there were differences in strength between great emperors, no one would kill another great emperor. Therefore, the death of a great emperor was an extremely shocking matter in the upper immortal world. Could it be that Empress Phoenix Master again? Roaring Sky Emperor stroked his beard, his heart skipping a beat. Speaking of which, nothing major had happened in the upper immortal world for thousands of years, let alone the death of a great emperor. However, ever since Empress Phoenix Master ascended, the upper immortal world seemed to be filled with a murderous aura. The death of great Emperor Bai Yin had alarmed many great emperors who had been living in seclusion. The person who killed him was none other than Fengjiu, who had just ascended. Now that another great emperor had died, it seemed to be Fengjiu's doing. Even though she had never met or fought with him, she knew from the great emperors she had killed that this person's strength was unfathomable. He was so powerful that it was terrifying. He stroked his beard and stared at the sky in deep thought. He muttered, "I heard that Empress Fengjiu has a pair of twins. If we can become in-laws with such a powerful great emperor, it will only be good for our Shao family." Thinking of this, he prepared to return to the palace and ask around to find out how old Fengjiu's twins were. Unexpectedly, before he could leave, he saw another wave of turbulence in the sky. His eyes narrowed, and even someone as calm as him couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air at this moment. Hiss! There are 3 great emperors today. 3 great emperors died. Great emperors who died at Fengjiu's hands. His eyes widened in disbelief as he looked at the sky in the distance. Everything seemed to have returned to normal after the turbulence. Even his great emperor's divine consciousness could no longer detect the aura and fluctuations of battle. "It's over," he murmured to himself. 3 great emperors, plus the Northern Flame great emperor from a few years ago, that's a total of 4 great emperors. Rumor has it that when Fengjiu ascended, there were 4 great emperors who tried to stop her and kill her. Could it be that the ones who died today are the remaining 3? For a moment, his mind was spinning rapidly, and the idea of marrying Fengjiu became stronger and stronger. He could only befriend such an expert, not make him an enemy. Chapter 51:36. At the same time, on Fengjiu's island, a red-robed Fengjiu stood against the wind. She watched as great Emperor Dong Yao was reduced to ashes in the raging flames and dissipated from the world. Her cool eyes swept across the chaotic aftermath of the battle, as well as the ground that had been split open. Thus, she put away the azure-edged sword in her hand and condensed a pure spiritual aura in her hands. With a clear shout, she scattered the spiritual aura in her hands to the surroundings. The ground that had been split open by the sword chi rumbled as it mended and returned to its original state. The trees and pavilions that had been chopped down were also being repaired by her immortal power. In the air, the three great emperors' auras disappeared without a trace, and the celestial scene formed by Feng Jiu's celestial power reappeared, as if the previous battle had never happened. Du Fan and the others' eyes lit up when they saw this. They knew that this was the ability of a great emperor after ascending. As for them, although they were talented, it was unlikely that they'd ascend to become a great emperor like their mistress. Hui Lang looked at her with admiration and exclaimed excitedly, "You killed 3 great emperors in a row. You're truly my mistress." "Mistress has always been very powerful," Leng Hua said warmly. "She's even more powerful after ascending." Du Fan smiled. "She killed 3 great emperors in a row. Looks like we came at the right time." "It's a pity that Qi Kong and the others didn't get to see this battle," Yingyi said. He felt that it was all thanks to his mistress that he was able to come here with his mistress. "Leng Shuang, I missed you so much." Seeing that the crisis had been averted, Lao Bai pounced on Ling Shuang. When Ling Shuang saw it approaching, she raised her hand to cover her face, only to see White licking her palm. She could not help but reveal a helpless expression. "White, be serious." "I've always been very serious. You can ask them if you don't believe me." Lao Bai turned to look at Tun Yun and the others. Tun Yun and the other contracted beasts looked away speechlessly. Song Mi Tai Song, and Yun Yang saw that their contracted beasts were familiar with them and couldn't help but walk forward. Feng Jiu descended from the sky. Seeing that the surroundings had returned to normal, he slowly walked toward them. "Introduce yourselves." "All right, I'll go first." Du Fan smiled and waved his fan. "I'm Du Fan. You must be Song Mi Tai Song and Yun Yang. I've heard my mistress mention you 3. We'll be companions from now on." Hearing that he could name the 3 of them, the 3 of them were slightly surprised. Then, they saw the 3 of them reporting their names one after another. "I'm Ling Hua. Leng Shuang. My name is Grey Wolf. Your mistress is my mistress." Grey Wolf grinned. Du Fan smiled and looked at them. "There are 2 more people in the forest. One is Feng Yi, the other is Zhao Yang. You'll probably see them later. Tai Song, this is my wife Yun Yang." Tai Song cupped his hand. "I'm Song Mi. I didn't expect my mistress to mention us. I've also heard her mention you 3. She said that you're the most capable people around her." Song Mi said with a smile. "Now that you're here, it'll be lively. Let's go. We'll talk in the hall." Feng Jiu walked inside and motioned for them to follow. Chapter 51-37. Compared to the tranquility of the Immortal Island, after the great emperors of the 3 territories were killed, the territories under their control were plunged into panic and chaos. They were worried that they would be affected. They wondered when the Empress and the Phoenix Master would take charge of their territories. At the same time, some of the great emperors fell into silence and deep thought. Even the great emperors who had lived in seclusion began to have ideas. While Feng Jiu and the others were discussing the next step in the palace, Feng Yi and Zhao Yang were running around in the forest, being chased by ferocious beasts. Why are there divine beasts again? Why are there so many ferocious beasts of the divine beasts level here? Moreover, there are so many of them surrounding us. They are trying to kill us. As he ran, he shouted. Every time he looked back and saw the ferocious beast following behind him, his already tired body would burst out with latent energy. He knew that if they were caught, they would be severely injured even if they didn't die. Zhao Yang was not in a better state. His robe was torn and there were a few bloodstains on his body. They didn't expect these ferocious beasts to be so cruel. Moreover, it was a group of divine beasts that chased after them. With their strength, they naturally couldn't deal with a group of ferocious beasts. At this moment, they finally understood why the young mistress had thrown them into the forest to train. In the palace, Fengjiu was making arrangements for Du Fan and the others. Today we killed 3 great emperors. The territories under their control will be ruled and recovered by us. You guys will be in charge of taking over and guarding the 3 territories. Fengjiu looked at them and said, Hui Lang and Ing Yi will go to the territory of the Sovereign of East Glory. Du Fan and Ling Hua will take over the remaining 2 territories. You guys are new here and not familiar with the situation. I will call some sovereigns over for you to dispatch. When they heard this, they looked at each other and stood up in unison. Yes. Give me your communication jades, Fengjiu said. They immediately took out communication jades from the space and handed them to her. After receiving them, she brushed her hand over the communication jades and handed them back to them. I'll leave everything to you. If there's anything you can't solve, just send me a message. Okay, they replied and took back their communication jades. Take these 3 great emperor's seals. Fengjiu handed the great emperor's seal that he had obtained from Dong Yao great emperor and the others to the 3 of them. As the 3 great emperors were already dead, the name on the great emperor's seal was the name of Fengjiu's Empress Phoenix Master. When Tai Song, Yunyang, and Song Mi saw this scene, they did not say anything. However, they were slightly surprised in their hearts. They did not expect their master to hand over such an important task to them. Moreover, he even called over the sovereigns to listen to their orders. They did not need to inform their master of their decisions. With such trust and authority, they could see that their master held a much higher position in their master's heart. Originally, they thought that since they were all the people around their master, it should be the same. However, at this moment, the 3 of them clearly realized that even if they were all the people around their master, their ranks should be higher than theirs. Don't worry, master. We know what to do, Du Fan and Ling Hua replied. Chapter 51-38. The next morning, the 12 sovereigns came to the deity island under Fengjiu's orders. In the main hall, the Phoenix Master sat on the main seat with Ling Shuang standing beside her. Du Fan, Ling Hua, and Hui Lang Ing Yi were all seated. After the 12 sovereigns entered, they glanced at the people in the main hall and went forward to kneel before Fengjiu. Greetings, Phoenix Master. The 12 of them said in unison. The news of Fengjiu killing 3 great emperors in one day had spread and they all knew about it. They respected her from the bottom of their hearts. Rise, Fengjiu said slowly. After taking a sip of tea, she looked at the 12 of them and said unhurriedly, I believe all of you have received the news of the deaths of the 3 great emperors of Dong Yao? Yes, we received the news yesterday. The news has already spread outside. One of them said, I called all of you here today because of this. She used the teacup to scrape the tea and took another sip. Then, she put down the teacup in her hand and looked at them. Please give us your orders, Phoenix Master. We will follow your orders, the 12 of them said hurriedly. They guessed in their hearts. Could it be that she wanted them to take charge of the 3 territories? Thinking of this, they couldn't help but feel excited. Now that the great emperors of the 3 territories have fallen, there will be chaos. Some people will take advantage of the chaos and cause trouble. Today, I called all of you here to instruct you. The 12 of you will form groups of 4 and follow the others. Assist them and follow their orders. As she spoke, Fengjiu looked at Du Fan and the others who were seated below. At this moment, Du Fan smiled and fanned his chest gently with the fan in his hand. He looked at them and said, My name is Du Fan. You can call me young Master Du. As he spoke, he walked in front of the 12 of them and asked, Which 4 of you want to follow me? Hearing these words, the 12 people couldn't help but be stunned. They looked at the people in front of them with some astonishment. In their opinion, the strength of these people couldn't be considered strong. In fact, some of them were even weaker than them. But to make them listen to their orders? Did they hear wrongly? No one volunteered? Du Fan smiled, as if he was not surprised. He glanced at them and said to Fengjiu, "Master, since they have no one to choose, then I will decide. I want the first 4. Fengjiu looked at him with a smile and nodded lightly. Yes. Those who were too weak were not allowed to take over those territories. The 12 sovereigns who were considered to be above average among the sovereigns were naturally subservient to the strong. Although she had given the order, Du Fan and the others would probably have to put in a lot of effort to mobilize them. However, the people she had groomed were still capable of this. Hence, she was not worried that they would not be able to subdue these sovereigns. In response, the 4 of them responded expressionlessly. They glanced at Du Fan and stood to the side. "I am Ling Hua." Ling Hua walked forward and said to the 4 of them, "The 4 of you will be under me." Hui Lang and Ing Yi looked at each other. Hui Lang grinned and said, "Then the remaining 4 belong to us? That's good. We have no choice." As he spoke, he said to them, "I am Hui Lang. This is Ing Yi. You don't have to call us young master or master. You can call us left and right protectors." Chapter 5139. Let's go. I'll send you on your way. Fengjiu gestured for them to leave immediately. Yes. Everyone cupped their hands in acknowledgement and walked out. Fengjiu followed them outside. With a wave of his hand, a whirlpool appeared and sent them to their respective destinations. Only then did he remove the whirlpool. With her abilities as a fairy realm powerhouse, she could travel to any place in the upper fairy realm in the shortest amount of time possible. If it were a sovereign realm powerhouse, even if they used a teleportation formation and their flying speed, it would still take them a lot of time. "Master, what do I need to do?" Ling Shuang stood beside her and asked. Fengjiu smiled and looked at her. "You just need to stay by my side. I haven't dealt with any affairs for a few years. I need to see if anything has happened in these few years. As for the next step, we'll just have to wait for Mose to ascend." Now that the 3 potential threats had been eliminated, she only needed to keep an eye on Mose's ascension and prevent anyone from plotting against him. As for the 3 territories, Du Fan and the others would take care of them. This saved her a lot of trouble. "Go and tell me, to make some food and send it to the study." Fengjiu patted Ling Shuang's shoulder and left first. "Okay." Ling Shuang replied and headed towards the kitchen. As for Tai Song and Yun Yang, Tai Song's specialty was being a weapon refiner. Therefore, he could not get involved in these matters. He could only focus on forging weapons at the back of the mountain. He knew that the reason why his master had saved them and brought them here was so that he could refine good weapons. And this was his only strong point. 3 days later, on a floating fairy island, Ling Hua was handling affairs in the palace. This used to be the fairy island of one of the great emperors. With the fall of the great emperor, the spiritual energy of this place had gradually dissipated. Ever since he came here, he had used the phoenix seal given to him by Master to restore the spiritual energy of this place. In the main hall of the palace, there were tables with various issues that needed to be dealt with. After flipping through the last document, he called out, "Elder He." Elder He was one of the 4 sovereigns who followed him. At this moment, he was playing chess with another sovereign in a pavilion not far from the palace. "Young Master Ling is calling for you." After putting down a chess piece, Elder He spoke to the sovereign opposite him. Elder He's face darkened when he heard this, but he held the chess piece and was thinking about how to make his next move. He pretended not to hear him. Ling Hua slowly walked out of the palace. When he saw the 2 of them playing chess, his eyes flashed and he asked warmly, "Old He, have you done what I asked you to do? Isn't it just passing orders to the sovereigns in the territory? I'll go after I finish this game," he said without raising his head. He held the chess piece in his hand and stared at the chessboard. His voice was filled with impatience. Ling Hua had always been gentle and elegant. He spoke gently and had a gentle smile on his face all year round. He gave people the impression that he was like a stream. The flowing water was thin, gentle, and calm. It was not like the turbulent sea, nor was it like a waterfall flowing down from a high place. There was not a trace of sharpness in his entire person. He was like a soft persimmon that could be pinched at will. Chapter 5140. Hearing his words, a smile appeared on Ling Hua's face, but his eyes were filled with coldness. He looked at him and said warmly, "Is this how Elder He listens to me? Or are you disobeying my master's orders?" Elder He's body stiffened, but he was furious. Who dared to disobey the Empress and the Phoenix Master's orders? However, this person was just a subordinate of the Phoenix Master. Did he expect him, a dignified monarch, to obey his orders and submit to him? Humph! Young Masterling, you're so arrogant. You're using the Phoenix Master to suppress me? As he spoke, he placed the chess piece in his hand heavily on the chessboard. The ice jade-like chess piece collided with the chessboard, producing a crisp sound. At the same time, his monarch aura also attacked Ling Hua, intending to intimidate him. Bang! At the moment when his pressure came, Ling Hua held the primordial umbrella in one hand and stabbed the tip of the umbrella into the ground. A powerful aura shot out from the umbrella in his hand. It was as sharp as a blade and could suck one's soul. Hiss! Almost at the same time, the two monarchs narrowed their eyes and stood up abruptly. The primordial chaos umbrella. Elder He, do you want to fight me? Ling Hua's voice was still calm. How would Elder He dare to fight him? He wasn't afraid of his strength, but of Fengjiu behind him. He was one of Fengjiu's men. No matter how dissatisfied he was, he didn't dare to fight him. If he did, the Phoenix Master would find out that he was the one who would be punished. He stared at the treasure umbrella in his hand, and his hands under his sleeves were tightly clenched into fists. It was such a waste for such an ancient treasure umbrella to be owned by such a person. How could he be worthy of using this primeval chaos umbrella? However, this person was one of the Phoenix Master's men. Even if he was dissatisfied and wanted to teach him a lesson, he didn't dare. What kind of person was Ling Hua? To outsiders, he was only known as Fengjiu's trusted aide. Internally, he was in charge of internal affairs. To put it simply, he was Fengjiu's butler. He had seen so many different kinds of people. He naturally saw the dissatisfaction, unwillingness in Old He's eyes. In addition to Elder He, the monarch next to him, as well as the cultivators who had just been subdued not long ago, were all paying attention to the situation here. He knew that if he didn't show them his ability today, it would be difficult for him to command them in the future. Not only would he lose face, but he would also lose face for his master. He would fail to live up to his master's trust in him. It had only been a few days since he had taken over, but he knew that this was the opportunity he had been waiting for to make an example out of them. Thus, he restrained the gentle smile on his face and said indifferently, "It seems that I need to let you understand what it means to command a mountain." As soon as his voice fell, he raised the primeval umbrella in his hand and his figure rushed forward like a gust of wind. The primeval umbrella spun in his hand and a powerful airflow was released. It was cold and sharp and carried a terrifying aura as it headed straight for Old He. When Elder He saw that he was the one who made the first move, joy flashed through his eyes. Since he was the one who made the first move, then he wouldn't be polite. Even if the Phoenix Master pursued the matter, he could say that he was protecting himself. Chapter 5141. Seeing Ling Hua's attack, he did not dodge. Instead, he met it head-on. The spiritual energy gathered in his palm exuded a powerful pressure and aura, forming a vortex in front of him. It transformed into a ferocious tiger head that roared angrily and pounced towards Ling Hua with its mouth wide open. Whoosh! The powerful airflow was accompanied by a monarch's pressure and aura. At this moment, the spiritual energy was so powerful that it caused the air to emit a sharp whistling sound. It was as if a tiger's roar could be faintly heard. Roar! A battle between powerhouses usually ended in a single move. Seeing the two of them fighting, the monarch on the side wanted to step forward and stop them. He was afraid that he would seriously injure Ling Hua. After all, one had to look at the master before beating a dog. If he really hurt Ling Hua, it would be difficult to explain to the Phoenix Master. However, he, who wanted to step forward, paused for a moment. His eyes flashed. Not only did he not step forward, but he also quietly retreated, avoiding the battle between the two. He thought that if Ling Hua was seriously injured, it would be a good thing for them. Perhaps the Phoenix Master would hand over this place to them. Due to this selfishness, he did not step forward to stop them. He even had some expectations in his heart. In his opinion, Ling Hua was no match for old he because Ling Hua was weaker than them. He wasn't a monarch-level cultivator. The difference between a monarch-level cultivator and a monarch-level cultivator was like heaven and earth. Therefore, Ling Hua was no match for old he. Just as he was secretly calculating in his heart, he could not help but widen his eyes when he saw the next scene. When the spiritual energy on Ling Hua's body surged, a Tai Chi yin-yang diagram formed around him. Compared to old he's powerful and turbulent aura, his aura was extremely gentle. The tip of Ling Hua's chaos essence umbrella pointed directly at the tiger head pouncing towards him. As the two auras collided, an unexpected scene happened. Bang! Whoosh! The chaos essence umbrella in Ling Hua's hand pierced through the tiger head formed by the powerful spiritual aura. As the tiger head was pierced, the airflow fiercely shot towards Ling Hua. Just when he thought that Ling Hua would be sent flying, he saw that the spirit chi flow that shot towards him was absorbed by the Tai Chi yin-yang diagram formed around him. At that moment, Ling Hua let out a low roar. The immemorial umbrella in his hand was like a sharp sword. It flew out from his hand with a swoosh and pierced into old he's shoulder at a speed that was too fast for anyone to react. Hiss! Old he screamed in shock. His eyes widened in disbelief. When the airflow was broken, he quickly condensed the airflow diagram again to block the attack. However, the aura was unstoppable. He could only watch as the sharp tip of the chaos essence umbrella pierced his body. A powerful force came along with the chaos essence umbrella that pierced into his body. When it pierced into his shoulder, the powerful force did not stop. Instead, it sent him flying. His entire body was nailed to a rockery dozens of meters away by the chaos essence umbrella. Ah! He let out a muffled groan as blood overflowed from his mouth. Intense pain assaulted him, causing his face to instantly turn deathly pale. Beads of cold sweat the size of beans seeped out from his forehead and dripped down. He only felt a surge of air in his chest as a mouthful of blood violently spurted out from his throat. Chapter 51-42. Blood spurted out of his mouth, and his entire body seemed to wither. However, compared to his injuries, what shocked him even more was how a person who wasn't even a monarch could defeat him. This was impossible. This shouldn't have happened. However, this was the truth. He, a monarch, had actually been defeated, and he had been defeated in one move. He wasn't the only one who was shocked and in disbelief. There was also the monarch who hadn't stopped them from fighting, the cultivators who were watching from afar, and the two monarchs who had just returned from their errands. As they watched this scene, their faces were filled with shock and disbelief. As for Ling Hua, the surging spiritual aura on his body gradually retracted. The Taiji yin-yang diagram formed by his spiritual aura also dissipated, as if it had never appeared. The aura on his body was still as gentle as usual, and it wasn't as fierce as it was when he attacked just a moment ago. He placed one hand in front of him and the other behind his back. He wore a crescent moon robe and quietly watched the monarch who was nailed to the fake mountain by the chaos essence umbrella dozens of meters away. He watched as the bright red blood seeped out of his wound and dyed his clothes red. Although this injury wasn't fatal to the heart, it was at the shoulder where the fist was above the heart. In addition, the wound wasn't small and was the size of the Chaos Essence umbrella. Therefore, this injury could be said to be not light. Ling Hua looked at him and said indifferently, "This is just a lesson. If there's a next time, I'll take your life." As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his hand. The Chaos Essence umbrella that had pierced through his shoulder and the fake mountain behind him flew out with a whoosh and returned to his hand. Ah! The Chaos Essence umbrella was suddenly pulled out, and Elder He, who was nailed to the fake mountain, fell down. Just as he was about to fall to the ground, he hurriedly stabilized himself. However, he also swayed and leaned back against the fake mountain to stand. He pressed one hand on the wound, and blood seeped out of his palm. He looked at Ling Hua dozens of meters away. At this moment, the sweat on his back was cold, and a tremor ran from the soles of his feet to his heart. This fear and shock made him realize that there were no weak soldiers under the Phoenix Master's command. Yes. He finally lowered his head in Ling Hua's direction and responded. Ling Hua glanced at him, then swept his gaze across the crowd. His voice was indifferent as he said, "Remember, an order must be given. Anyone who disobeys will be killed on the spot." His indifferent voice went from soft to deep. Especially when he said that he had killed 4 people on the spot, it carried a murderous aura that made people tremble in fear. Everyone's heart trembled as they involuntarily replied respectfully, "Yes." It was also at this moment that 2 rays of light flashed out of Ling Hua's space and landed beside him. Only then did everyone see clearly that they were 2 cloud-devouring beasts. Moreover, these 2 cloud-swallowing beasts were the Phoenix Master's contracted beast. The Phoenix Master's contracted beast was by Ling Hua's side. What did this mean? It went without saying. When old he saw the 2 cloud-swallowing beasts, his face turned ashen and fear appeared in his eyes. At this moment, his heart was filled with endless regret. Why did he have to take the initiative to provoke Ling Hua? "What are you waiting for?" Ling Hua frowned. Chapter 51-43. For a monarch rank powerhouse, even if this injury was serious, it wasn't fatal. Especially at this moment, he didn't dare to say that he would bandage his wound and recuperate. He could only quickly carry out his mission and find time to bandage his wound. "Elder Lu, give me the statistics on the island before sunset." Ling Hua looked at the monarch beside him. Yes. I'll go take a look now and ask them to speed up." The monarch said, bowed, and hurriedly left. At this moment, the 2 monarchs who had just returned looked at each other, then walked forward and cupped their hands. "Young Masterling, we've done what you asked us to do. There are still some things we want to tell you in detail. Come to the hall," Ling Hua said, then turned and walked back. Seeing this, the 2 followed him in. At this moment, they couldn't help but rejoice. Fortunately, when he asked them to carry out the mission, they did as they were told and didn't cause any trouble. Otherwise, they might end up worse than Elder He. Seeing them enter the hall, the few cultivators who left with them exhaled softly and said in a low voice, "I couldn't tell. This young masterling has been busy dealing with matters these few days. He looks gentle and has no temper. Who would have thought that he's so strong? Even that monarch was defeated by him. Didn't they say that his strength hasn't reached the monarch rank?" "He hasn't reached the monarch rank, but this young masterling is said to be by the Phoenix Master's side? But where did he come from? Why haven't I heard of this person before? No matter where he came from, he's not someone to be trifled with. Let's stay away from him and do things according to the rules." The few of them talked as they walked away. At the previous place, the 2 cloud-swallowing beasts looked at each other and dispersed, planning to patrol the area. Their master had asked them to follow Ling Hua here. First, he thought that if something really happened, they could help. However, Ling Hua had only asked them to stay here for the past few days. If they didn't come out today, No one would know that they were here. When they returned, they would definitely tell their master that Leng Hua had become very powerful in the past few years, and his way of doing things was very similar to their master's. On the other side, Leng Hua gradually took over the affairs of the company, and he gradually grasped the various aspects. On the other side, Hui Lang and Ying Yi also encountered the same problem. However, other than the two of them, Feng Jiu had arranged for Fire Phoenix to follow them. In addition, Hui Lang was more direct and his temper wasn't as good as Leng Hua's. It had only been a few days, but the four of them didn't seem to be obedient, so he directly threatened them. In the main hall, Hui Lang threw a thick stack of documents on the long table. He glared at the four people sitting in the hall and said, "Is this how you do things? If you don't want to listen to my orders, then scram. But let me tell you, once we've dealt with the matters here, the four of you can wait to get even with us." Hearing this, the four of them, who were holding their teacups, paused and looked up at Hui Lang. "What do you mean? What do you mean?" Chapter 51-44. The four of them shuddered and narrowed their eyes. Their hearts were in their throats because of his words. They were sent here by the Phoenix Master. If they didn't handle this matter well, they wouldn't be able to get anything out of it. In fact, they might even implicate their families. Thinking of this, they finally realized the seriousness of the matter. Immediately, one of the sovereigns cupped his hands and said, "This old man is at your disposal. I will do my best to help you deal with the matters here. I only hope that you can put in a good word for me in front of the Phoenix Master. This old man will be very grateful." The three sovereigns beside him hurriedly cupped their hands and said, "We were muddle-headed earlier. Please calm down, Left Guardian. From today onwards we will obey your orders. We won't dare to disobey." Grey Wolf's expression eased up when he saw this. He glanced at them and said, "As long as you help us deal with the matters here with all your heart, we'll naturally put in a good word for you in front of the madam. You won't miss out on your contributions." "Thank you, Left Guardian," the four of them hurriedly said, their hearts filled with gratitude. "You may leave. Deal with the matters that I've assigned to you first. If there are any problems, come back and report to me." Hui Lang waved them away. "Yes, sir," they replied and retreated. After they left, Hui Lang looked at Ying Yi and raised his chin proudly. "How was it? I told you that we shouldn't give them too much face, right? To deal with them, we have to be fiercer and more ruthless than them. Otherwise, they won't know how powerful we are." Ying Yi glanced at him and said, "These people are all sovereigns. It's normal for them to be dissatisfied. We have the Fire Phoenix here. I wonder how Du Fan and Leng Hua are doing." "Leng Hua will be fine with the two cloud-swallowing beasts following him. Besides, Leng Hua is not as weak as you think. He has been by Madam's side for so long. Haven't you seen enough of his methods?" Hui Lang said with a smile, "As for Du Fan, you don't have to worry about him. He's full of evil intentions. When it comes to playing tricks, he's the best around Madam. Besides, Madam can see that you've given us Fire Phoenix and Leng Hua two cloud-swallowing beasts, but Du Fan has nothing. Don't you understand?" Hearing this, Ying Yi was silent and didn't speak again. After a pause, he said, "I'll go see how they are doing. If there's anything, call me." After saying that, he left first. Seeing him leave, Hui Lang thought for a moment and followed him out of the main hall. He wanted to see if the four of them had left to carry out their task. On the other side, on the fairy island where Du Fan was, the four sovereigns were feeling uneasy. They had wanted to give Du Fan the cold shoulder and force him to admit defeat in front of the four of them. This way, at least they would have a say in this place. However, they didn't expect that, in response to their actions, not only did he not look for them, he even made them mere figureheads. Chapter 51-45. The other three also frowned. One of them said, "I didn't think he would be so powerful. There were still some cultivators on the island who hadn't left, but now they've all been subdued by him and are under his command." The Phoenix Master told us to listen to his orders. Now that things are like this, if the Phoenix Master were to find out, would she? Things did not develop in the direction they wanted. This had practically disrupted their plans, and their hearts gradually became uneasy. Then what do you think we should do? Lower our heads to him? One of the sovereigns said with a sullen face and displeasure in his eyes. That Du Fan? That brat only dares to do this because he's by the Phoenix Master's side. If we lower our heads today, how can we raise our heads in the future? Then what do you have in mind for the current situation? The sovereign who spoke first asked. Hearing this, they fell silent for a while. After a while, the sovereign with displeasure in his eyes said, Since ancient times, the strong have always been respected. We can listen to his orders unless he's stronger than us. As he spoke, he glanced at the three of them and said, I'll challenge him to a battle. If I win, he'll listen to our orders. When the time comes, I'll let him tell the Phoenix Master that he gave up his authority because he's not strong enough. What do you think? He's not stupid. He knows he can't beat you, so how can he accept your challenge? Another sovereign said and shook his head. He felt that Du Fan wouldn't agree to such an absurd request. How would I know if I don't try? If I lose, I'll lower my head to him. What's wrong with that? The sovereign said and stood up. He brushed his robe and walked towards the main hall. In the main hall, Du Fan had a long table placed in the middle of the hall because he had to deal with some matters. At this moment, he was dealing with some matters as he listened to the reports of a few cultivators in the middle of the hall. Young master, this is the list of items on the island. Now, everything has been returned to its place and people have been sent to guard it. Young master, you can go and check it at any time. As he spoke, one of them walked forward and placed the list in front of Du Fan. Sir, after releasing the news, we've received many sovereigns today. These are the invitations they sent in. They're already waiting outside the island, waiting for Sir to summon them. Another person said and handed over the list of invitations. Sir, this is the information you asked us to collect. Another person also handed over the list of invitations before returning to his feet. Du Fan flipped through the invitation cards. There were about a dozen of them, and on them were the names of their families and origins. Therefore, after a cursory glance, he looked up some information about these visiting sovereigns. Yes. The cultivator respectfully replied before retreating. Calm. However, before the sovereigns could arrive, the 4 sovereigns who had been idling on the island arrived first. The 4 of them entered. One of them walked in front. When he saw Du Fan in the middle of the hall, he coughed loudly. Chapter 51-46. Sir, we were unable to stop the 4 sovereigns. 2 cultivators who were guarding outside the hall lowered their heads and knelt down on one knee in the hall. Go and receive your punishment. 30 whips each. Du Fan said in a low voice. Yes. The 2 of them did not dare to beg for mercy. After hearing the 30 whips, they quickly retreated. This Sir had not taken over this place for long, but his methods and abilities had made everyone on the island revere him. He had always been a man of his word and dealt with matters with lightning speed. He was even more strict in enforcing the law. Because of this, in just a few days, no one on the island dared to be disloyal. Seeing this, the eyes of the 4 sovereigns flashed. No one knew what they were thinking. What's the matter? Du Fan's voice softened. He put down the documents in his hands and leaned back. He picked up his teacup and took a sip of tea. As for the 4 sovereigns, they were not the only ones who did not understand why Du Fan ignored them and did not cause them any trouble. Even the 2 cultivators who were guarding Du Fan were puzzled. From the way he handled things and his ability, he should not be afraid of these 4 people. However, from the first day when he sent someone to summon them over, not a single one of them showed up. Since then, he had treated the 4 sovereigns as if they were invisible air. No one knew what kind of medicine he was selling in his gourd. Sir Du, although we were summoned by the Phoenix Master to await your orders, from our point of view, with Sir Du's age and experience, you are not qualified to lead us four sovereigns. So, before he could finish, he was interrupted by Du Fan. I'm really sorry. You came at the wrong time. I still have guests to meet today. I don't have time to listen to you. As Du Fan spoke, he looked at the four of them and smiled. If there's nothing else, you can go back first. Hearing this, the four of them were stunned. They did not expect him to say such a thing. They had already come all the way here and had even spoken their minds. Could it be that he wouldn't fly into a rage out of humiliation? Or would he fly into a rage and slam the table? Why would he ask them to go back with a smile and a gentle voice? For a moment, looking at the smile on his face, their hearts couldn't help but sink. They had a faint premonition, as well as an inexplicable panic. Du Gongzi Wei. Just as Zhang Xian was about to speak, he suddenly heard a voice behind him. Turning around, he saw a dozen or so sovereigns walking over. The four of you can go back first. As you can see, I have a guest to see. Du Fan smiled and put down the teacup, fanning himself with the fan in his hand. Send the four of you back, Du Fan said leisurely to the two cultivators beside him. Yes. The two cultivators respectfully replied. They stepped forward and gestured to the four people, please. When they saw this, the four of them looked at each other, pursed their lips, and turned around to leave. As the saying goes, don't slap a smiling face. This Du Fan had always been gentle and kind to them. Even if they wanted to use the mobile fury, there was nothing they could do. Moreover, there were more than a dozen sovereigns present. They could not afford to cause trouble in front of these sovereigns. Hence, they could only return to discuss this matter. Chapter 5147. At this moment, the cultivator who led the crowd in said, Everyone, please wait for a moment. I will go in and report. Then, he went into the main hall to report. Master, the sovereigns have arrived. They are waiting outside the main hall. The cultivator cupped his hands and bowed. Let them in, Du Fan said as he covered up some documents on the long table. Yes. The cultivator replied and went out to invite the sovereigns in. Then, he retreated and waited outside the main hall. More than 10 sovereigns came in and saw a man holding a fan sitting in the middle of the hall. They looked at him secretly and then looked away. They cupped their hands and said, Greetings, Master Du, everyone, please take a seat. Du Fan gestured for them to sit down. Looking at them, he casually fanned himself with the fan in his hand as he said unhurriedly, I'm sure all of you have heard of my master's great name. When the sovereigns heard this, they said, The Empress Phoenix Master's name is well known. Although we have never seen the Empress Phoenix's face, we have always admired her. Hearing this, Du Fan laughed and said, Everyone is smart. I have always liked to deal with smart people. He smiled and stood up. He closed the fan in his hand and patted it gently as he walked into the main hall. You may not be familiar with me, so allow me to introduce myself. He walked leisurely in the main hall and said, My name is Du Fan. The Empress Phoenix Master you are talking about is my master. This time, she sent me here to take over this territory and handle the affairs here. It can be said that in the future, I will be the one to decide and handle all the major matters in this territory. As he spoke, he paused and turned to look at the sovereigns. He smiled and said, It's only been a short time, so you probably don't know much about me. But that's fine. As time passes, I believe you will all know what kind of person I am. Hearing his words, the dozen or so people present were slightly moved. In fact, before they came here, they had heard that this Du Fan had completely taken over this place in just a few days. His methods and abilities could be said to be top-notch. They had even heard that the Empress and the Phoenix Master had summoned 4 sovereigns for him to command. These 4 sovereigns should be the 4 that they had met when they entered. However, they had also heard that these 4 sovereigns seemed to be unconvinced by Du Fan. After arriving here, They had practically ignored Du Fan's existence and did nothing. As for Du Fan, he seemed to treat the four of them as if they were invisible and left them hanging. This made them feel puzzled in their hearts. Since those four people didn't put him in their eyes, why would he let them stay on this immortal island? Instead of doing anything to them? Suppressing their thoughts, they looked at the smiling Du Fan in front of them, who seemed to be easy to get along with. They faintly felt a sense of dread. How could a person who could be placed in such an important position by the Empress Fengzhu be useless? They were afraid that this person in front of them was also a ruthless person.